Hello and welcome to Educated STEM. I'm Kate, the founder of Educated STEM, and if you're here to watch the final video in our series on starting your own business, I hope you've watched the other 4 videos which we have released previously, but today it's the final one and we are talking about what are the pluses and minuses of having your own business and whether we would do it again. So please join me and Dr. Sheila Vradenberg from Revolting Science Resources and Lauren Solano from Propel Careers as we talk about these 2 questions. So now I've got the 2 final big questions. So what are the pluses and minuses of having your own business?
We talked about some of the pluses of, you get to really build this how you want to and serve customers the way you want to and clients and choose even sometimes who you want to work with and who you don't want to work with. I've turned some people away who just it's not the right culture match and it just, um for me a downside is definitely like work-life balance. I have a really hard time with that. I always have. So it's really hard to set boundaries. So I tend to work probably more than I should in terms of things. But it's also hard because if you're building something you really are passionate about, it's hard to shut it off at 5 o'clock in the evening. But anyway, the boundary thing for anyone that's doing the entrepreneurial thing, that's something to really think about because it's important not to burn out.
Yeah, I think kind of like you mentioned, Lauren, I think we touched on some of the pluses. And I think for me in particular, I really like the independence it gives me. I have ideas and I'm creative and I get to just like see that explored. But I think some of the cons, I also work remotely. I work remotely not only for my own business, but also for the company I work for part-time. And so it can be isolating. You are kind of just in a silo doing your own stuff. You don't have a team that you're bouncing ideas off of necessarily, which obviously isn't true for every business, but it is for the one that I'm running. And so I think sometimes that can be a little tricky, but I think that's also what's so great about being able to like connect with different people through a lot of different mediums and be able to share ideas and chat. So like, even when there are some cons, you can try to like find ways to hopefully mitigate those when you can. I think the other con too, especially being more at the beginning stage of my business, is obviously like money, just trying to balance like, what are things worth spending money on? What are things not worth spending money on? Trying to make sure I'm getting in money so I'm not just spending it. I think as it's only, I think about 2 years since I've started my company. So still very early. And I think part of that is too being patient. Like you are not going to, likely you are not going to start $1 million business tomorrow. But just being really patient and consistent and being very intentional about the decisions that you're making so that you can reach a level of profitability that is sustainable. I think that's something that takes time, that can sometimes feel frustrating.
Oh, totally. Well, one thing I found, and Kate, I wonder if you've also seen this. There were some people that wanted to make sure Propel would be around enough to then okay, come in and talk because now you're like legit, right? You're not just 6 months in, maybe you'll be alive in the next 6 months or not kind of thing. So sometimes there is that after a couple years, people realize, okay, they're not going away, they are making an impact, et cetera, et cetera. Then the clientele start to increase because people realize that you're not just kind of like floating around. This is something serious.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny because people knew me as a dean and this is what I did, but now I'm solely focused on helping people remotely, whether that's through YouTube, doing one-on-ones, and I live in Southern California, but I help people all over the place, all talking at institutions and conferences. And I think it's just really interesting how different people respond to you. So whenever I used to speak at my institution, it was just Kate. They saw me all the time. But if I'm speaking at SACNAS and Abracams, then, I am Dr. Kate Sleeth and I'm talking to you about something that I am very familiar with. So I can't remember how someone told me, you're just the general Kate wherever you are, but you are the expert when you go somewhere completely different. And I think that is that is true to some extent. And I think maybe that also bites me in the bum because people know me as just Kate, and I used to lead a national organization, and they're like, it's Kate. I'm like, yes, but I am good at what I do. Like, no one's come up to me after the negotiation talk saying, that was awful, you gave terrible advice. You know, they usually come up and say, you know, you approach this in quite a different way to other negotiation talks. And that's also true with any of the other talks that I give, probably because I've seen so many talks on the different areas, and I want to make sure that I do it differently because that's going to be my niche. That's going to be what I'm known for. And I will say, talking to Shayla's comment about, you know, being in a bubble. So years and years ago, I wrote a talk called, I think it's Mr. Bump's Career Exploration. And I just read my son, who was really small at the time, the Mr. Men series of books. And I'd read Mr. Bump, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful when it comes to career exploration, if you know this story. And so I built this entire talk around Mr. Bump. And I've given it a handful of times, but nowhere near as many times as you would assume. And then I was chatting to a friend, I'm just going to say Marina Ramon, who I'm actually talking with at SACNAS. And we took that talk and we changed it because she said, who's Mr. Bump? I don't get this at all. And I was like, what do you mean you don't get it? Surely all children read the Mr. Men book series. What? So she very politely told me that probably most people didn't understand why the talk was going to be helpful. And so we've completely reimagined it, and it's going to be seen for the first time at SACNAS. But if she hadn't said anything, I wouldn't have known that I needed to change the premise of the talk, because everyone who's ever seen that talk was like, that was really cool, that's really good. And I just didn't understand why it wasn't getting any traction. But now I know, apparently Americans don't necessarily read the Mr. Men series.
I'm trying to think. I don't know if I know that. I mean, I don't have kids, I have nephews, but I don't know that was in the series of books. I'll have to go back and look. But
Yes,
actually, you're lucky, Kate, that you have people that give you honest feedback. I mean, it's really valuable for people. And I know for myself, and I'm sure both of you too, I really try to give people feedback when I can that's constructive, because it may help transform what they're involved in. So you're lucky that you had Marina to share that.
Well, I will bring the Mr. Bump book with me when we're both at SACNAS, and you can read it. But basically, because he's so accident prone, he keeps getting fired. And he then takes a vacation and thinks about what he's good at. So he's looking at his skill set and his interests, and he ends up being an apple picker, but not in the way that you would expect an apple picker. He would walk into trees and then catch the apples as they fell. So, you know, the farmer that he worked for was very happy because he was using his very unique skill set. Mr. Bump was happy because he had a job that he enjoyed doing, and his accident proneness didn't then cause issues. Because I think, you know, he fell off a bus when he was a bus conductor. He kind of put a nail through his hand or something when he was doing something. So it was very unfortunate. But if you read the story, it's a really fun kind of movement into career exploration in a, what makes you different? What are your skills?
I love it.
But that will forever now be dream big, plan smart. So Mr. Bump is gone.
Hopefully you had a party for him. So the other thing is, it's good to celebrate wins if you are an entrepreneur, even small ones, right? So it's like, it's good to acknowledge these things.
Yes. And okay, so final question. Would you start your business again?
I would. Yeah, there's some people. So when I give, this has happened multiple times. I was up at University of Toronto and I gave a talk, and somebody in the audience was like, I think you found the right career path for yourself. And then I was somewhere else and gave a talk, and like almost oftentimes that type of comment comes up. I'm like, that's so cool. Yeah, I mean, I think so. I would go about it differently for sure. There's things I would change from the get-go, but yes, I but honestly, I mean, I don't know, Shayla, about you or even Kate. Like, I never thought I would start a company. It wasn't until business school when I was like, this is kind of fun to like do these business plan things and let's like. And when I was starting Propel, I was like, well, let's see what happens. Like, worst case, it fails and I do something else. Best case, I continue doing it, and it's been 15 years now, so I'm still doing it. But I kind of went into the mindset like, let's just try this, see what happens, you know.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly how I approached it as well. This was never on my vision board. This is not what I imagined for my career, but I am really happy that I started it and I would start it again. And I think too that what's really nice about having a business, especially one that you're in charge of, is that you get to decide how things look in the future. And so, I really love what I do as a part of this company. I really love the people I get to work with. I really love getting to see people take these ideas and actually, get more of their life back, just from having some increased organization and efficiency around their research. And I think, I want to do this for a long time, but also if for whatever reason that, doesn't end up being the best path forward, I can always make a different choice. And I think too, it's just more for me about having some intentional decisions in terms of like what makes the most sense, what do I like doing, what is working and what's not. But overall, I really have enjoyed starting my own business. It's been a lot of a giant learning curve, lots of things to understand and kind of incorporate, but overall, I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think it's challenging trying to start something new. And for me, I've been very specific about what topics I go into. I don't want to step on any of my friends' toes because there are so many people who sort of do things very similar to us. I'm deliberately not going into specific areas. So one of the areas I've always done, but now I'm trying to go into more is business etiquette. As we all know, the wonderful Mary Mitchell, she has now retired, and she kind of blessed me to move on into the etiquette space. So before that, I was not going to touch etiquette with a barge pole. But now that she has said, go forth and do it, I feel comfortable to kind of move into her space, not in any way as a peer to Mary, but I know what I'm doing with what I'm talking about. So I'm happy with that. But yeah, I think I would happily do it again. I would definitely hold myself more accountable with doing things more consistently. And I think learning to just get over the fact that if everything's not perfect, it's still something. It's something I tell graduate students all the time. Your thesis is, or your dissertation is not going to be perfect. And at some point you need to let it go. And I needed to relearn that lesson when it came to putting things out on social media or onto YouTube. Something being put out is better than nothing.
Yeah. Well, you have a high standard. Like, all of us have high standards. So I think there are cases where it's better to have nothing out than something. But I think with us, it's good to have a high standard because you want to make sure that you're representing your brand well and that you're not just aloof in terms of posting things and so forth. But yeah. I think we've all struggled. I've struggled with that too. It's like you do the best you can sometimes, and you have to be okay with that.
Yeah, I've heard this saying that perfect is the enemy of good. And I think at the end of the day, you want something that is good and you want something that is high quality, but it doesn't need to be perfect. And I think, yeah, like you were mentioning, Lauren, like for most people, if you are somewhat of a perfectionist, you're probably hitting the good bar more than you think that you are.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, you can tinker forever. You finally need to let it go and put it out into the ether. And I know that because it is a YouTube channel, I was terrified that I would get horrible feedback. And I haven't received, touch wood, I haven't received any so far. So obviously that's great. But it's daunting every time I press publish. What is going to happen? Are people going to turn around and say, that was terrible? And if you don't agree with what I'm saying, that's perfectly fine. We can have a dialogue. We can disagree politely. But I think it's been an interesting ride, and I look forward to seeing how it continues. So thank you, ladies, for joining me. I learned a lot. I hope that everyone watching the video recordings has also enjoyed the comments that you've made. It's been very informative, and I look forward to collaborating with you both at some point soon in the future. Thank you.
Me too. Thank you guys.
Yeah, same. Thanks.
So thank you for joining us on this journey about starting your own business. I would like to thank Dr. Shayla Vredenberg and Lauren Solano for helping me with this. Please go and find Shayla at Revolting Science Resources and Lauren at Propel Careers. And please like and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.